Yo, 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 yo. This is Candy B Knittin. I'm Candy B. I be knitting. And today, I did it, folks. I finished my oldest knitting work in progress. I am wearing it right now. I'm going to read it because I mess up the name of this every time. The Summer Secret Crop by Jessie Maed, of Jessie Maed Designs. And I started this last summer. And as of recording this right now, it's June 8th, 2024. And I started this probably May, June of last year. Thought I would make myself a nice one skein summer tank top because I wear a lot of tank tops. It'd be great for layering, great for the beach, etc., etc. It took me a few weeks to knit the body, and then pretty much it went in hibernation until fall, winter, because I just could not wrap my mind around how I wanted to do the straps. Just to give you some specs on the pattern, it is a crop top. She has instructions on how to do a fingering weight gauge that's a little bit lighter, or a DK weight gauge that's a little bit denser. And I'm going to take this off now because this is not how I would wear this. I wanted to show y'all how it looked on me. I'm going to take off and show it to y'all. I did fingering weight held double, DK weight. I cannot tell you what size I cast on for, because I'm pretty sure I didn't gauge swatch. I also, my body has changed since last year, so I wouldn't even be able to tell you what size I intended to cast on. And also, as y'all can see, if y'all are familiar with this pattern, let me try to hold this up so y'all can see. I'm going to hold up the body. This is the body. I've got about 2 inches of ribbing right under my bust, and then the bust, and then I cast off with an I-cord edge, and then these straps are what I want to talk about next. This is a free pattern, by the way. I started knitting during COVID, and she has a note on the pattern that in honor of people, I guess, learning to knit during COVID, being home, having more spare time to knit, she made this pattern free during COVID with the suggestion that you donate what you would have spent on the pattern to charity. But as of June 2024, the pattern is still free on Ravelry if you're interested in it. But in the pattern, she has I-cord straps, and I knew I wanted more of a bralette type piece. And I wanted a little bit more coverage. And so first I was like, okay, maybe I'll just do the I-cord because that's what the instructions call for. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll, and that's, I forgot to bring. Then I ordered some straps. I was going to do some white lacy fabric for straps. Then I was just like, I'm not the strongest sewist, so I don't really know how that's going to work. And I just flip-flopped until it got to be fall, winter of 2023. And I was just like, this is never going to get done if I just keep in it. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll do elastic straps so then it'll have more longevity. Finally, I was just like, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to do double knit straps. And so I taught myself to double knit. And then the real fun began because I was knitting yarn held double and then knitting the straps 2 at a time so that they would be the same length. And so that was another slog that I had to get through because it wasn't the most fun. Basically double knitting, your fabric is growing at half the rate that it would in normal knitting. But I got it done, got the straps done, and then probably for the last 2 months I've been like, all right, how am I gonna get these straps on, because I have to get them on myself and get them in the right spacing. And if you're moving your body while you're trying to measure something to your body, it don't work very well. And so finally, I think maybe last weekend, I just went upstairs and I put some clothes, put my intended undergarment on and did this and that and the other, and took a shower so my body would be clean. That's the other thing too. I'm like, okay, I don't want to come in from a sweaty jog and try this thing on me. And I grabbed Mr. Rulu and I was like, can you please just pin these so that there's some semblance of symmetry with these straps, and he pinned it for me, and I must have, over the course of 2 days, sewed these on and took them apart several times to get them lined up just the way I wanted them. I had them too close at first, and then I opened them up a little bit, and then on the back you can see I want it just, I want a little bit of negative ease. I want the straps to be snug. I don't want them slipping off my shoulders. And I did this little detail in the back where I knit the bottom of the strap to the bottom of the top, but then I sewed it down here too, so that it's sewed in 2 places on the back, and it creates this little loop, which is a little fashion detail, I guess you could say. The other thing I did differently with this pattern is I did, I guess, bust darts or what you would call short row shaping to get the bust shaping just right, because I have about a D cup chest, and so there is quite a differential between my rib cage and my bust, and so I didn't want it. I knew I wanted more of like a tight bralette type fit, and so I added it in just a couple of inches of short rows to accommodate that. So that's that, and it's done. My intention with this, I'm not a big crop top wearer. I'm much more of, this is going to be more of like just an undergarment for me, and that's the other reason why I was just like, I need to stop stressing about this, because literally this is just going to be one of those, I need to like run out the house and drop off the kids really quick, or run out into the garden, or get on a phone call, and I just want a little bit more coverage without, a formal bra digging into me. And so this is just going to be a little layering piece. Maybe I'll wear it a little bit this summer, just like when I get out of the pool, or when, we're coming back from the beach and we want to stop in somewhere, I can throw this on. But a little bit revealing just for my personal taste to like wear to the mall or just out and about. The yarn I used is BC Garn Bio Balance, and it's 50% cotton, 50% wool. And so it is, quite warm. I wouldn't wear this like on 100-degree day outside, but like I said, for sitting inside my house or just running into the car and dropping off the kids at school, perfect. I showed y'all a shawl a couple of episodes. I showed it twice, I think last week and a couple of episodes before that. That was knitted out of this same yarn. Basically, I got like 4 or 5 skeins of it in a bag from a thrift store, and the whole thing was like $20. And so I've knit a 1 skein shawl, probably used a skein and a little bit more to make this. And now I've got some nuggets left, and it's in a little plastic bag. We're continuing the odyssey of the bags, and so now this yarn is going into a bigger bag to be donated probably to my local craft thrift store. I just kind of over time just build up bags of things that can be donated and got rid of, and then when my bag is full, I'll take it in. But this is in here, and you could get something else decent out of here. I just don't have any other fingering weight cotton wool yarn, and I don't really plan on buying anymore. I don't have anything against it, but it's kind of like I had enough fun with this, you know what I mean? And so I'm good. And someone else that maybe has this yarn in their stash can use it for something else. But I mostly use either wool and nylon for socks or 100% wool. If I'm doing a shawl or what have you, I can't imagine going out and buying more cotton wool fingering weight yarn just to use up a few scraps that I paid $20 for and got a shawl and a top out of already. That's my mental justification for that. As far as the pattern, I'm not gonna really comment on the pattern because, like I said, I made the top mostly. The straps are of my own invention, and I made the top mostly last year, so I really don't remember how I felt about doing the pattern. Like I said, the actual body part of the top flew by. But over the course of making this, I realized I really don't care for knitting tank tops or summer tops. So I feel like it would be unfair for me to judge the pattern based on my personal taste. Like, just because I don't, like the process of knitting, that doesn't make it a bad pattern. And y'all know Jessie Maed better than y'all know me, and she's quite popular. Very much, size inclusive. Let me read this. The pattern itself starts at a 24-inch bust and goes all the way up to a 62-inch bust, with the understanding that you would have negative ease. So even with a 62-inch bust, maybe, you're a 64, 63-inch bust, and then you would have just a little bit of negative ease in the top for that. And that is 61 centimeters to 158 centimeters. So very inclusive, very stylish. It looks great on everybody, but just the process of knitting it, I'd much prefer knitting just a top-down raglan sweater or knitting a shawl. But something about like the starting and stopping and making sure I'm measuring just right. I remember being very self-conscious about this cast on and making sure it wasn't too tight. And so just in general, I like a little bit more hands-off of a knitting project. And also, it's kind of like the effort versus the output. I own so many tank tops, as you can see, and, nice cotton tank tops, super functional, throw them on, layer them, and it just feels a little bit extra to knit a tank top when I have so many, A shirts and cotton tank tops that are just super easy to come by. Nice, well-fitting sweaters, or sweaters that are just the right length, and or pullovers rather that are just the right length. A shawl that's in a really special color. I feel like that is more worth the effort than there is a price to everything. I'm not saying that fast fashion is everything, but it just felt like a lot to make a bralette when I own a lot of little bralettes and tank tops that I didn't pay very much money for or put a lot of effort into. But it's done. That's the long and short of it, and that's the moral of the story. And I can move on with my life and check something off my list, get my size 6 knitting needles back, get rid of another bag, and fold this bad boy up, and hopefully get a little bit of wear out of it. I might end up, maybe donating it or something, just because, like I said, I have so many tank tops already, but whatever. The next thing, speaking of long-standing works in progress, I'm going to show y'all an update, because I'm actually at an update-worthy spot with my Kagan's quilt. I'm working on this, it's going to be for my king-size bed, but a fairly large blanket to go across my bed, with the idea being I really want it to start a long-term knit project, because like I said, I've been knitting since COVID, and I always hear people saying oh, this is my long-term project, or I've been working on this blanket for a year, and I'm just like, I wonder what that's like. Let me try that. And so I've been knitting these squares for there's 4 motifs in the Kagan's quilt, and I have finished and washed and blocked all of the squares for the first motif. And so I am probably 15 to 20% done with this blanket, because I then have to sew all of these together and then continue my way through the quilt. And so just as a reminder, this is the quilt. And so I've finished all the squares that go into this piece, and then all these 16 squares get sewn together. And now I'm moving on to this motif here, and it's 4 blocks with squares knitted on the bias. And this is in Tony Lipsy's collab with Hobby Yarn, the Happy Place yarn, and this is the start of the second motif. Basically, the first 2 motifs are pretty exacting as far as needing enough yarn to make the pattern work. And so I'm working on all of that first. And then when I get to like this section where there's stripes, there's a section where there's like almost like a chevron type stripe. Then I can kind of incorporate whatever I have left and start weighing my yarn. I'm thinking, by the way, this pattern was originally written for fingering weight yarn in a totally different gauge, and I'm doing DK weight yarn on size 8 needles. And so it's a quite a light open fabric because I'm looking for something that I can just have on my bed all year long. It's not too heavy. Provide a little extra warmth in the winter time, but nice and light and airy in the summertime, and mostly going to be for decoration. And so the pattern, she puts yardage, this is Carolyn Bloom, by the way, she puts yardage and weights into the pattern, but it doesn't really work for what I'm doing. And so I'm kind of just playing it by ear. And so far I'm thinking maybe I won't have to order more yarn, but we will see. She also has a garter stitch border that goes around the whole thing, and I'm thinking I'm just going to do an I-cord, and I should have enough to do an I-cord when everything is said and done. But I'm going to work on this section here. After that, I'm going to cake up all my leftover yarn, start weighing it, and then I think the next logical thing is to work on this because all these stripes are of a similar width, and so I'm gonna have to play around with what I have left to make these stripes work. And then this has varying I'm gonna pull it closer. This motif has some thin stripes, some thick stripes, so I'll be able to play around with whatever I have left for that. So far so good. I think this is going to be kind of like the project of the summer, and then that way when I roll into fall/winter, I'll have a nice new blanket for my bed. I don't know if I'm a long-term project person. Some people are very comfortable with that, and it feels like an extra thing. You know, it feels a bit burdensome to have like almost like something hanging over your head that you have to work on. I'd much rather just have one big project and then little projects here and there to work on, and then move on to the next big project. But having one big project that's just kind of always there in the background, I don't know if that's my style. So I think I'm gonna kind of prioritize this and start to kind of wrap it up. The other thing too, I was saying the last time I talked about this blanket, I kind of kept telling myself, oh, that's my long-term project, so I don't really have to prioritize that. I don't have to work on that right now. And so it got to the point where I hadn't touched it in months, and I don't want, that's not my preferred method to work. I like, consistently touching what I'm working on. And like I said, I want the blanket, so I need to work on this. The other thing too, I need to think through, the pattern says to mattress stitch these together. And I have been reading about different joining methods. Like I'm thinking about like the crochet joining method, and that gives a different look to the seams. So I am going to play around with that, because my intention with this also, I wanted a long-term project, and I very much was looking for something that was quilt inspired. And so it would be kind of fun, I think, to kind of play up that seaming to make it look like a real hand sewn, which it's going to be hand sewn because I'm sewing with the yarn, but you know what I mean, like the idea of like leaning into the quilt aesthetic, in the homemade aesthetic, in the kind of folk aesthetic of it. So we'll see what I do with that. I'll probably just end up doing a mattress stitch though. Last but certainly not least, on the theme of long-term projects, I've been working on these dolls for my well, I've only got one doll I'm working on, but eventually there will be a second doll because I have 2 children, and you can't make one something without making the other something. But I'm working on Martha for my younger child, and I finished knitting all of the pieces of Martha. And now it's time to do my favorite thing, which is seam all of the pieces. That was what kind of got me through this project, because I am not a little knitter, like, put this little piece together and then pick up this and sew this piece. I do like kind of bigger projects, and so I kind of, the way that this project mentally is working for me is I'm just trying not to think about all of the little finishing that I'm going to have to do, because after you seam, then you got to put the face on it, you got to do that, and so I'm just trying to take it one step at a time is what I'm trying to say. And so this is all of Martha. She's got heads, she's got one head, she's got 2 legs, 2 arms, shoes, and I've already started. The pattern just calls for a mattress seam, and this is the body. And so I've mattress seamed up the back, and then I'm just going step by step in the instructions. The whole thing is knit flat and then seam together, and the next thing they want you to do is do the legs. And I've got to figure this out because I did a mix of cotton and acrylic, and the gauges aren't exactly lining up, so it's just going to take a little bit of time for me to figure this out. And then I need to figure out what I'm going to stuff it with, because I have, the last time when I knit those lions, I stuffed it with scrap yarn, and believe it or not, I'm running a little bit low on what I would call scrap yarn that is fit for stuffing. Like I have, good sized chunks of balls of yarns left that I would use for like a project. And then I have like, piles of just like ends that have been cut off that just can be like combed or carded into like fluff. And so I don't think I have enough for that. So I'm kind of like looking around the house for like fabric scraps. Maybe I'll recycle a pillow we already have or something like that. I'm thinking that through. I shy away from buying polyfill because way back in a previous life, I bought a bag of polyfill because I just knew I was going to make pillows for my couch. Never made pillows, so just a giant bag of polyfill sat around my house, never used it, ended up getting rid of it. And so it just seems kind of silly to go out and buy more, knowing that, I just need enough to stuff a couple of dolls. And there's so many other items that you can use for that. So I'll just have to figure that out and play around with it. Then I wanted to show you Martha's clothes too. I finished up her clothes, and then these were kind of damp still because I steam blocked the clothes. These are her jeans. In the pattern, everything is knit flat, including the clothes. I knit the dolls flat just because I'm not that experienced in knitting doll pieces, and so I just was like, I'm just gonna follow the pattern and do what the pattern says. When it came to the clothes, I did kind of play around with the patterns to knit the clothes in the round. So these pants, she knit 2 panels, and this is Louise Crowther, by the way. She knit 2 flat panels for the legs and then joined them at the top, and then you're supposed to seam up the back of the pants to make them, closed pants. Instead, I just knit 2 tubes and then left them on waste yarn and then joined them at the top, and then so these whole pants are knit in the round. The other thing she does, this is going to be similar to the Jessie Maed top. Louise Crowther is very well known for her patterns, wonderful pattern writer. This is just not my personal taste as far as the knitting experience goes. So if you are really into like very detailed, customizable, piece by piece type of knitting, this is your thing. But this is just a cotton yarn I had that looked similar to jean fabric, but she's got, in her pattern, she does a denim colored jean fabric. She actually has a contrasting color that she knits down here, because you know how just regular jeans you buy from the store, the outside will be dark and then you fold them up and they're light on the inside. So she has that little detail in the pattern. I just knitted it all in one color. I did follow her instructions. She has a little belt she puts at the top, and you slip stitches to make little belt loops. I did do that part because I thought that was actually precious and a good way to use up a little bit of extra scrap yarn. And then the only other thing you have to do is kind of like knit up the crotch, because you do get a little hole in the crotch when you join the 2 pieces together. And then this is the doll's tunic, and in the pattern she has it knit flat, and then this is the back, and she has it knit flat, and then you put buttons up the back. And I didn't want that because 1, I don't do buttons. 2, I wanted to make it knit in the round. And 3, This is for my 5-year-old daughter, and I know her well enough to know that when buttons are involved, the buttons are just going to come off. Like, she's a bit rough and she likes to test things. Let me just put it that way. So what I did was I did knit it flat until I got to the underarms, just so I could fit it over the doll's head. And so the intended pattern, first of all, the intended pattern is a color work sweater, mix of intarsia and stranded color work. Obviously I didn't do that. I used just a striped ball of cotton and acrylic yarn. This is the, if y'all remember the Lion brand ice cream cakes that were cotton and acrylic together that have been discontinued. I just used one ball of that just to create a color change to give some visual interest without doing color work. And then when I got to the sleeves, then I started knitting in the round, and then, just a little bit of a garter stitch hem down here. And what I might do is, this would be the front as intended in the pattern, or obviously you could turn it around and it be a little V-neck. What I might do is I can do a little crochet chain and just do one button, and I would be comfortable doing that. And so that's that. I'm gonna leave things here. I really, the main thing I wanted to show y'all was just a little bit of, because y'all are my accountability buddies, and I have told y'all for weeks that I wanted to get straps on this, so I'm excited about that. If in the comments y'all would tell me what your oldest whip is, and or do you have a whip or a unfinished object UFO, a hibernating whip, whatever that is currently your oldest whip, how old is it? Is it years? Because I've heard of years, but I feel like I've been knitting for 3 to 4 years, so a long time for me. Anything that takes longer than like 2 to 3 months is a long time for me. But I know some people have been knitting, 20, 30 years, so you might have like, oh, my kid's about to go to college and I still have their baby blanket in the closet. Let me know. This has been candibknittin. You can email me also, candibknittin@gmail.com. Hit me up on Instagram. I'm at Rulude on Instagram. Ko-fi, I'm at Rulude. Until next time, peace.